Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sunrise Electrify Media channel. We are today looking into the response, that be of the public, to the documentary The Manosphere by Theroux. Why? Well, I think it's needed. What I noticed is that a lot of these podcasters that have been reviewing this documentary have been primarily giving it from their own perspective. And what I think is needed is a perspective from the public. So as a consequence, we've been doing interviews with anyone who will literally speak to me. And the result? Intriguing, actually. I dare say eye-opening. Interesting for sure. So without further ado, let's get to it.
I'd just like to sort of understand, from having watched it, what do you think of what good masculinity is, and as a caveat, bad, from having watched it?
I think that's an interesting, quite a broad question, because it's going to differ from what I perceive as a young woman today, and what I suppose these influencers who are promoting a certain type of masculinity that becomes quite dangerous, what demographic they're reaching. So I think in terms of my perspective, I think good masculinity is the ability to not limit oneself to a rigid ideal that's quite traditional. So traditional masculinity being men have to be strong, assertive, head of the house, the provider of the family. I think that's a very binary view of what a man is, and it becomes dangerous when it's fueled and pushes especially young men to believe that that is the category they have to fit in to be accepted by society.
Yeah, I found it interesting from watching the documentary when we've got these influencers looking at their concept of perhaps it's a response to sort of their view of the red pill agenda, to what happened from their perspective, to the Me Too movement, to the woke sort of backlash and what have you. HS Tiki Toki, you may remember him. He's got this notion that, at least it seems, as long as I'm making money, I don't care if, for instance, I'm making money off those that are doing the what do you call it, OF content. So if his daughter's doing OF content, no, thank you. But he's happy to make money off those that are doing it. He talks about his son. He would disown his son if he was gay. A misogynistic attitude. Who do you think in today's world is a good male role model based on that?
Well, I think, like you said, it's really interesting that they have this notion of wanting to escape the agenda and sort of take the red pill and escape this matrix that we're in. But then it's also very conflicting what they're telling their audience, is that to go against almost this capitalist mindset, but that's exactly what they're drawing people into. And it's the same with promoting OnlyFans, but then at the same time calling it disgusting, and women who get involved in that being very dehumanizing them and exploiting them. And I think this exploitative nature is exactly what they're doing and they're profiting off of. So I think it's almost a good role model for me is not necessarily branding something as very black or white, bad and good. It's finding a nuance between that and actually appreciating both sides, rather than just going for this rhetoric that this thing is bad, you must go against it, whilst also being very contradictory and promoting that themselves. I think their whole idea and everything that they're profiting off of is entirely what they're condemning at the same time. So I think it's being clear in what they're saying, and actually being being sure of what their argument is
Yeah.
without being discriminatory.
Yeah, it brings me to a point when I was watching one of the influencers, a gentleman called Myron,
Yes.
and I felt sort of, with regards to what he was saying on screen, and that being he gets all of these OF girls in, these ladies in, to talk about their platform, and it's unfortunately an attention, provided you can get as many eyeballs on you, gig economy now. I think sadly where the girls are willing to go through what can be a humiliating experience of being talked down to, made to be sort of subhuman, but they think as long as I can get eyeballs on them, that's okay. So my question being is, how do you feel about that, first of all, because it can be a spiral, to more extreme content that we've seen with Bonnie Blue, and secondly, what do you think is the right way for men to treat women with regards to sort of being there to provide the good masculine roles that they find within themselves, but also equality?
Yeah, I think that, as a woman myself, watching that part of the documentary and sort of deconstructing what these women have to go through, and the humiliation, almost ritual that these men, I suppose, it's quite a vulgar term, but get off on, that it's just against everything I stand for. I'm a firm feminist. I write, for example, a lot of my coursework and a lot of my independent research projects have been on feminism and what it means to be a woman, especially coming from a personal experience. I've been in an all-girls school for 7 years now, so it's something that I feel very, very passionate about, and that I really want to advocate for. So seeing that part of the documentary and sort of seeing how women are still treated by men, especially with the rise of social media and making a living off of social media. Again, it comes back to this idea of it is just exploitation. It comes back to this idea that men have always come back to taking advantage of women, and I think it's no different on social media now. So I think a good relationship between men and women would be, exactly as you said, equality. And I think it's so hard, it's such a complex sort of solution to get to. I think gender equality is such an odd thing to say, oh, here's exactly how we're going to achieve it, here's exactly how we're going to do it, because there's always going to be obstacles, there's always going to be different societies that value different things, different people that sort of create their own groups where they're completely rejecting this idea of equality. So I think for me it would just be the individuals taking the time to advocate, because I think if we shut down and silence ourselves and allow men to keep on exploiting us, then it's just going to prevail. So I think as an individual myself, as a woman, I want to sort of project that actually there is a possibility, and although that possibility might not be clear in how we get to that, I'm still going to advocate for it either way.
That's interesting, thank you. Coming from what perhaps is seen as like a liberal conservative position on the matter, watching this chap, an influencer, I think surname Walsh, he was interviewed with his inverted commas wife, so he wasn't actually married to her because he, I imagine, is concerned that if anything happened he might lose some of his wealth. And as you can remember, no doubt, whilst Louis was interviewing them, it was decided from him as to kind of how the situation was regarding, you are there to bring up the kids and be like a traditional housewife, whilst monogamy is only on the side of himself. Granted, I think whatever you want to do in your own relationship is fine. However, the issue that I have personally is that if you're going to go down this road, then do not do things that make women seem like second-class citizens. I'll give you an example. There's a point where he, with Andrew Tate and his brother, I can't remember his name, Tristan I think, are on camera looking at siphoning off their girlfriends from all other opinions. Is that not insecure?
I think it's completely insecure,
Yeah.
and I think it comes back to this idea of inadequacy, that they don't feel they have control over the situation. I think obviously all of these men that we've seen, they lean very far into this right-wing idea of actually we need to protect masculinity. I think there was that case where Louis Theroux interviewed those fans, and they were very adamant about the fact that, oh yeah, we follow what he says because he's taught us that men are disregarded in today's society. So I think it comes back to they've misinterpreted women now having more access to choice and more access to autonomy as we are being pushed aside, we're being ostracised from society, when that's not the case. It's not the fact that men are being brought down onto women's level, or I guess what would traditionally be defined as men are superior and women are inferior, as it's been relayed throughout history, but actually just that women are slowly gaining in one way or another more independent, or the ability to be more independent in society and have more choice. And I think it is incredibly insecure that men will see this as inherently that it's them being dragged down in comparison. And I think that's such an odd way to look at it, that it's completely discrediting what women have fought for throughout history to get to a place where actually they can have a voice and they can have an opinion.
It makes me think, with respect to if you are trying as a guy to be ultra controlling on your communications, you may have once had a possessive a girlfriend, boyfriend, who, whatever, throughout your time, one makes me think of that, and then it's just extrapolated, and that's what they're trying to push out there amongst the manosphere, which a lot of the time their audience is the worst case, unfortunately the most case it seems, demographic teenagers, young boys, young men. Make sure that they can't talk to anyone else that doesn't believe in the same thing that you believe in, and it just gets to the point where you think you're insecure as a man, you know, because a real man, as my understanding, wouldn't do that. Have friends with whoever you want to be friends with. If you've got such an issue with it, then what's wrong inside of you? That's my opinion on the matter. So it has been really interesting. Rosie?
Daisy.
Daisy, there was the E
Flower
on the
name,
end.
it's similar.
Daisy, wonderful lady here, and one in which I'm sure will be a fantastic sort of woman in the English literature world.
The second interview was with a man that I came across in Alexandra Park, and he gave us his insight into what is good masculinity, bad masculinity, and what are the 5 key traits that a man should possess in an ever-changing world. Aziz, thanks for coming along today, man.
It's all right.
Appreciate it. So this gentleman is here biking it out by Alexandra Palace, and we thought we'd have a chat with him. He's got a wonderful Honda there, which is a beaut. So today we are looking into what the public think about masculinity, and this gentleman is a young man. We would love to get his insight, so we'll crack on with it. Aziz, so what I'd like to know is, what do you think good masculinity is?
Good masculinity to me personally is being a role model, I'd like to say, and someone who demonstrates like good morals to the younger youth and just helps out basically.
Good stuff, yeah. A role model, a good male role model, and cracking on with the best you can do there. I like that. What to you is bad masculinity?
Someone who isn't respectful, someone who doesn't respect boundaries, thinks that because they're a man they get away with everything, and just
I see what you're saying. And in this day and age, because the world's ever changing now, you know, where we've got social media, AI, all of that jazz, what would you say are the 5 key traits that a man should possess in practice in today's society?
Traits to possess is respect, like I said. Obviously, respect. To be very motivated. To use money wisely. So to be wise with stuff. To have your head screwed on. And just don't let power get to you.
Yeah. Lord Hailsham once said, interesting quote I think about what you're saying, is that power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is certainly an absolutism. I like what you said there with respect and keeping your head screwed on. There's so much going on in the world right now, and it's good to garner views as to what is good masculinity and what helps a man push forward in today's society. So, Aziz, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Cheers. All the best.
The third interview was with a man that I came across outside Alexandra Palace. He gave us his insight into a plethora of topics and issues surrounding the response to the Manosphere and beyond. Let's get to it.
So what I'd love to know is, as to a young man, what do you feel is good masculinity in today's society?
So I can't speak for every person or every man. I can only speak for myself. Personally, I think being a good man, at least what I strive for, is to be humble and to have humility. I think that shows a level of vulnerability, but also strength in your own character. It's the main thing that, as I've gone through life, I figured that's the key character trait that I strive to have and falter, but it's what I try to go for.
Yeah, good stuff. And as an opposite to that, what would you say is bad masculinity in today's society?
Yeah, I don't know the exact word for it, but of the bad men that I've been around, I see a common trend line of having a need to degrade other people that you're surrounded by in order to elevate your own view of yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of a damaging ego, almost. Having to kind of hate on other people just to make yourself feel better. I think as a human being, that's just a horrible trait to have. And so it's what I try and steer clear from.
Sure. Good stuff. And what would you say is the 5 key traits that you think a man should have in an ever-changing world in today's practice?
5 traits. I say humility, honesty, being kind of self-assured, making not having so much of an ego. It's a hard balance to strike, but being confident in your own self. I'd say honesty, humility, being self-assured, eager as well, like having things you care about and really trying to go for them. And vulnerability as well.
Brilliant. These influencers, we're going to get into them now and look at them individually. The ones that I felt were most prominent with respect to their influence over young men and boys.
Yeah.
First one of them I wish to mention, HS Tiki Toki, says Harrison Sullivan. He was interviewed in the documentary The Manosphere, stating brazenly that if he had a daughter who did OnlyFans, he would be disgusted. But at the same time, he stated happy to profit off the backs of OnlyFans girls, their content. What do you think of that?
I think that it shows his character in terms of what his goals are. Like it's clear to me, hearing a thing about this person, I don't really know who they are, but I can tell that they're shooting for vanity. I can tell that they're shooting for fame. I can tell that they're shooting for things that I would not want, like traits that I wouldn't want to try and take on. And so, yeah, I think it also speaks that you would work with people and you would promote people that you don't respect. Like, having a view on these models. And then having your own opinion, even publicly, that you don't care for them, it tells a lot on your character and what you're willing to do to reach that thing, to reach that balance.
Yeah, very transactional, taking out the human element,
yeah,
I feel. Harrison also states that if he had a son who was gay, he would disown them. What do you think that says about him as a person?
If he has a child, well, I'd assume he doesn't have a child, based on that. I think when you have a child, I don't have a child of my own, but I think once you have a child, things like that become secondary. I don't think that that's a real opinion he'd hold if he had a child. But if I'm wrong and he does, I think you failed as a parent if what they do to prove themselves to you is everything to you. I think it's more about raising somebody that you respect yourself, or at least guiding them in the right direction, where you think that they're a good trait. I think it's hateful to have that view on gay people, but even for a son, I think it's just, again, it speaks to your character that you're so naive to have a view on a sexuality that you would lose that contact with your own child to maintain that view. I think that's poor.
Yes, I like what you talked about with respect to helping your son or daughter, in short, become their own person, and not wanting them to sort of prove everything they can to you, and not even as a result have their own core identity. That was very interesting. At least that's what I picked up. Another influencer in the documentary is a guy called Justin Walsh. He's been featured in the video with Andrew Tate recently. That was leaked. I think it was from one of their courses. And they talk about the practices of isolating women from their friends. Justin is quoted as saying, "One way I isolate my girl to be only my friend and not have friends have an influence over her is that he attacks every one of her friends." And I quote, "So I attack every one of her friends," unquote. Does this seem a bit insecure? When I say a bit, perhaps a lot, to do this, and all being with the view to isolating her friends from her?
Yeah, no, it's definitely insecure. I think for me it's more of a conversation of whether that's manipulation. Like whether that, at least for me, a healthy relationship comes from you are both your own people. Removing someone's social circle is kind of killing their way of engaging with the world outside of you. I know of the person you're talking about. I haven't seen the documentary, but so I haven't seen his wife. I don't know what she thinks on it. But having that mindset, even if you're doing that unintentionally, that's one thing. But having the mindset that that's what you seek to do, communication is so important, and learning new things through new people is also important. I can only imagine what would happen if she came to him one day and she said, "I made a new friend." It's just not. It's not a good place to be.
No,
it's not a good relationship.
Certainly not. And the even worse thing, in my view, is that he's not just doing that with, say, his partner. He's promoting this as a practice for young men to go about their relationship. He is also interviewed in the documentary with his partner, the mother of his children, and says he practices one-sided monogamy in that he can sleep with whomever outside of the relationship, but his partner must remain faithful to him, and states that they're not married. Now, personally, I'm all for couples doing what is suitable for them. However, I am a bit concerned it does leave her exposed to financial manipulation, and is another form of isolation that he was referring to earlier. What do you think?
Well, there's clearly a trend with him and the relationship he's in. It's something that's quite common. Like, I've heard it quite a lot, specifically for men to think that it's okay for them to step outside the relationship. I've heard many different reasons for this argument, such as it being a physical need, and I don't agree with that. I think it comes down to what the two people agree on in the relationship. To me, the key is the context that he doesn't like her having friends. He doesn't like her friends having impact on her life. And so I think that whatever works, and whatever you two agree on is what you agree on. I think having it one-sided sounds ridiculous, but especially because she doesn't have anyone to check it with. She doesn't have anything outside of him to validate her emotions on a thing like this. And so it's difficult to say from the outside. If I had a friend who said that, I wouldn't co-sign that. I'm not. That's not something that I think is respectable to do, at least.
Yes, because what particularly worries me is he's not saying, I don't think that guy Steve has the best interests for you, and perhaps you shouldn't hang around with him. He's talking about friends. You know? That's why I'm bringing this up. Another influencer, Myron. So this gentleman is interviewed in the unedited footage of the Manosphere that he filmed himself to sort of check what had been said throughout the whole thing. He's filmed in that interview saying that he thinks women shouldn't vote. He's openly quoted as saying on his podcast, quote, "Women don't have critical thinking skills, and that the majority of women are stupid, and that women are overgrown children. These are our mothers, daughters, sisters, aunties, nieces, our grandmas, some of the best contributors to society that we have." What's your view on this?
Well, I said this to you before as well. The smartest people I know are women, almost without a doubt. It's. I think, I've heard this as well. That men are smarter than women, and not being able to vote is ridiculous. I think that it's such a what's the word? Like polarizing opinion that people either really strongly agree with it or really do not agree. And I think, again, the fact that they're speaking to young children, like a word that's very commonly used for their audiences is impressionable. And I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Hearing that growing up, I have a younger sister, and especially when all of these people became a lot more famous, you see it in the younger generation, how much hate gets carried on. There are strengths and weaknesses of both genders. There's natural things that both tend to, at least in my opinion. Intelligence is not one is smarter than the other. It's not. I don't agree with that whatsoever. So I think it comes from a place of hate and wanting control desperately.
Absolutely. In many a sense of what you said there, I think it also alludes to the idea of smart and intelligence. There's been quite a few studies that have looked at both men and women, and that they found the median average IQ to be almost exactly the same. So I don't buy into it at all. And smart is not about intelligence in some ways. It's about doing the right thing, and finding the best result. Great stuff, thank you. And it leads on to the antidote. I would love to know what you think with these sort of rises of extreme views in society from these influences that is helping, in a bad way I believe, young boys and men have misogynistic, homophobic and xenophobic views. What do you think is the best way to tackle that?
I think people are stuck in bubbles. I think that's what a lot of the problem is. So the way I would say, at least as a start to breaking that and unwinding that ravel is, or that yarn, is being around these people.
Yeah.
I've very rarely encountered, if ever, I've never encountered someone who's around a group that they actively hate. I don't think that that's even possible because, again, it's very easy to categorize someone, or degrade them into a box that you can then assess the box rather than the individual. And so for me at least, I would say the start is to having an open conversation or an honest conversation about where the differences are. And the fact that that's okay is a key thing. There are differences, but they're always okay. And yeah, just more speaking to people that you don't particularly identify with.
It's a spice of life having differences, and it can be a very interesting thing, you know, having different friends with different opinions, and that's great. Myron's girlfriend, who is featured in the documentary, clearly seems uncomfortable when asked about whether she'd be okay with Myron having multiple wives. Would you like to have multiple wives or husbands, whatever your bag is?
No, not absolutely not. I don't think you build a healthy relationship with 4 different women. I don't think, at least a romantic relationship, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, it's hard to have the time for all of those. Huh?
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
There you go. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. HS Ticky Tocky, a lad named Harrison Sullivan, has been interviewed with Louis with his viewpoints as to his own son being gay and what he would think of his daughter if she did OnlyFans, whilst of course still profiting from it.
Manage OnlyFans girls?
I don't personally manage them, but I bought an agency that does. Do I agree with it? No. Would I profit off it? Yeah. I'm a businessman, man. I'm not doing it for fucking fun. Not what my daughter will be involved with. I'd disown my daughter, like, as in...
Would you?
Right, if she done something like that.
Come on, that's easy to say.
Same way if my son come out gay.
What, seriously?
The next clip is with Justin Waller, not Justin Walsh. I referred to him as Justin Walsh before. I didn't know who he was until this documentary. With Andrew Tate and some other guy discussing with respect to Justin's views as to how he thinks it's best to isolate women from their own social group.
The way that I isolate my girl to be only in my frame and not have her friends have influence is I attack her friend's frame. So we get in trouble, like, she ain't said anything. Well, of course she's not. She doesn't respect it. And didn't she the one that said she wanted to go to Vegas on a girls trip? Yeah. She doesn't respect it. Trash. Yeah, trash. And I'll just attack every one of her friends.
The next clip shows another influencer named Myron and his views on one-sided monogamy. The result, not what I think he intended.
Justin, he boasts about his one-way monogamous relationship with his girlfriend.
I do what the f*** I want to do. She's loyal to me. It's monogamous on her end, open on my end.
I think she left. Yeah. Good for her.
The fourth interview was with a young man that I came across in North London who gave us his insight into what is good and bad masculinity and what was his personal journey alongside the key traits that a man should possess. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you very much.
This young man has some really interesting things to talk about today with respect to some key questions about masculinity and things that are related specifically to that. This gentleman is a young man who is just having completed a marketing communications degree. Well done, and no doubt be interesting to hear what he has to say. So without further ado, because of the camera and the wind, I'm going to have to go around here, but I'll be here to go through it. So
we'll stage in that case.
Fantastic, yeah, we'll crack on. So without further ado, Yash, what I'd love to know is, what do you think is good masculinity? What does it mean to you?
To me, good masculinity means surrender more than anything else. Like, I recently was talking about this in Substack article I wrote, where oftentimes masculinity is framed as conquest, as taking, as strength and power more than anything else. And I think we need to change the idea, or rather reclaim the idea of what it actually means to love, what it actually means to give in to emotions every once in a while, because love, as I mentioned in that article as well, has never been about conquest. You tell someone, you confess your deepest feelings to them, and then you hope that they're going to choose you back. In this case, there's no element of power, of a display of strength over here. All it is throwing yourself to the mercy of a feeling that you feel deep in your bones, and then hoping that it's reciprocated from somebody else. I think that's where we start.
Good stuff. And that reciprocation, obviously it's something that a lot of people want when they give out love, but it just brings a point to giving out that love regardless and hoping it will come back, but having the courage, right?
Exactly.
Marvellous. What does bad masculinity mean to you?
To me, bad masculinity implies a lack of consent for somebody else. Actually, the best way of saying this is that bad masculinity implies a hierarchy, when one person is always considered above another, be it regardless of their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, anything of the sort. Bad masculinity emphasizes power, it emphasizes dominance, and it emphasizes a way of being where in order to be good, you have to be above somebody else and not equal to somebody else.
Very interesting. And in an ever-changing world, what do you think is the 5 key traits a man should possess and practice in today's society?
So I touched upon a bit of this already, but trait number 1 would be empathy, without a doubt. Being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes matters a lot more than being able to say provide for a family, than say being able to be the man of the house. Being able to understand how someone's feeling is a lot. It's the first step to understanding why people do things that they do. It's the first step to eliminating differences between people, because the only way to understand each other as people, even if we come from vastly different backgrounds, we come from vastly different upbringings, even if we don't exist in the same spaces typically, it's to be able to understand how the other person thinks, why the other person does what they do, how the other person's life is impacted by the decisions that you take and by the ones that they take as well. Mm-hmm. The second one I'd have is compassion. Being able to forgive people and understand them for their actions. Now, there's a big difference between forgiveness and understanding, I get that. But understanding is the bare minimum over here. You don't have to agree with a person's actions in order to understand why they act the way they did. Even the Manosphere influences that we were discussing right now. I don't pardon those views, but I understand why they spout those. It's because we're living in a society which has enabled them to spout those views, and this and understanding why they do what they do is the first step to being able to fight what they do. In this case, the third one I'd have in this case is to be able to listen, because men have this tendency to be placed on a pedestal from a very young age, where be it your parents telling you this, be it your peers telling you this, be it this entire structure that we have in the world where one man is placed on a pulpit above everybody else. It tells you that you're more important than everybody else in the world, and oftentimes that means you talk but you don't listen, and listening is the key to empathy. It's step 2 to the decision taken step 1. The fourth thing I'd say is acceptance more than anything else, because just because someone is different does not mean someone's bad. In this case, right? In a world that's so rampant with xenophobia, where there's always narratives of us versus them, one versus the other, and the other could be so many identities. Yes. I come from India, a country that is fragmented in its unity right now. It's going through a tough time at the moment in terms of identity politics and culture wars being started. But there's only ever been love whenever I've met people from different communities. People are people everywhere you go. And as long as one person isn't harming the other in any way, shape or form, that person should get to be the person that they are.
Yes.
And honestly, I don't know if there is an appropriate number 5 here. I could go on and on about what I need to have.
Well, whatever you're comfortable with. I really love, Yash, your talk there about compassion, empathy, leading with that, and listening. I don't believe that we were created with 2 ears and a mouth for nothing. It's because we're supposed to listen more than we talk.
Exactly.
But a lot of people these days, they just are waiting or literally sort of ready to butt in just to hear the sound of their own voice and talk. So I couldn't agree more with that. That's great stuff. And what would you say is the antidote to the rise of extreme views in social media, of the influencers that have been shown in the Manosphere documentary, whereby which they're having more and more control over primarily boys and young men into seeing women as second-class citizens and being gay as something to be worthy of being disowned for. Misogynistic, xenophobic views. What do you think, Yash, is the appropriate response to this?
I think the appropriate response is compassion. more than anything else. As someone who was almost a part of the Manosphere growing up, like I was this close to declaring myself an incel in the 11th grade. Okay, what saved me was critical thinking, and that critical thinking is often something that has to be induced than it has to be something that someone's immediately born with. The world we're living in is teaching us as much as possible to stop thinking. We see the rise of AI. People no longer want to actually sit down and solve a problem. They want a quick solution. And I understand why they want it, because in a world where your time is currency, as opposed to a society in the past where time was time. It passed. A thing took its own time. Therefore, as we're moving towards a place where you need to be told what to think, the best thing you can do is think for yourself. And if you see someone not thinking for themselves, a lot like the young men who get influenced, and the boys, I'll be very honest, they have internet access now, who get influenced by right-wing grifters like this, all of these guys, all these boys need is someone to talk to and ask them why they think the way they do. Nothing dismantles an argument or like a worldview like a single calmly presented question.
Yes.
I saw this happen on a university campus to an influencer just a few days ago on a video where a woman where he said a statement where he said men would have no reason to talk to a woman if they didn't have vaginas. And the woman who was conversing with on the mic just looked at him and said, "Does that mean you want to have sex with me?" And he fell silent. And more than that, his compatriots fell silent. His silence was not as telling as their silence was, because suddenly a lot of views start changing over there, and losing that influence, losing that currency they hold, where only I am right, nobody else is. That is what where you start. Everything else will follow.
Insightful, and that leads on very well, I think, to the last question. A common theme with almost all of these influencers is the lack of a present, loving father growing up. How much do you think lacking a good father as a role model is contributing to these views of misogyny, homophobia and xenophobia in social media?
Okay, so I personally don't think I am capable enough to comment on them having a lack of parental support, because I don't know what their childhoods were like. Sometimes you don't even know what your own childhood was like, so I would not be in authority on that. But what I can say is the reason I hold the views I hold today is because of my parents. I was brought up by my father and my mother, and I saw between the two of them a team that respected each other before everything else. My father worked, my mother worked as well. He worked in an insurance company. My mom was a teacher, and between the two of them, I saw what a healthy parenting relationship looks like. My dad empowered my mother in a world where he was not obligated to. I come from India, a place where oftentimes women are still seen as second-class citizens by default. Like, you are expected to stay at home, be the homemaker, raise the children, pop out kids like it's your God-given responsibility. My father and my mother had a very different dynamic. He insisted she work. He was not content with her sitting at home. He told her, you can do whatever you want. You can set up a business if you want. You can go to work. And he didn't exactly have to tell her this. She told him she would do it. And he was her biggest cheerleader growing up. Seeing that healthy dynamic where my mom could take pot shots at men every once in a while, and my dad would just laugh along and take it like the champ he was. In fact, he would dish it back at her. And I didn't see sexism as much as I saw banter. Yeah. And I think that's a very crucial difference over there. Where a joke at the expense of a woman or a marginalized community hits much harder when the person you are talking to is not okay with it. Because that's not a joke anymore. It's an uncomfortable reality that you're just bringing back to them in this case. So I think your parents shape who you are more than anybody else does. I don't know if these influencers had parents who shaped them into what they were, because I've seen people completely different from their parents as well. All I know is that there's no replacement to love. No matter what gender the parents are, they need to be loving. They need to be parents before they need to be anything else. They need to be people before they're parents as well.
Sounds like a great team that did a good job raising you. So, Yash, thank you so much. Much appreciated. And I think that you're going to have a stunning career in your marketing, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
The fifth interview was with a seasoned man who I'd came across in Tooting Bec Common, who actually served in the Cold War. He gave us his insight into good and bad masculinity, and his thoughts on society to date, and much more.
Right.
Hello, I believe you're Ian, sir. Pleased to meet you.
I am, yes.
This is a gentleman that we have with us who's kindly said that he will give his insight into masculinity and a few other notable points.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we'll get to it. What I'd love to know, please, is what do you view, Ian, as good masculinity in today's society?
Well, I think having a generosity of spirit and an awareness that you're not the only person on the planet, and that the world doesn't revolve around you in the way that Donald Trump seems to think that it does, or Vladimir Putin. I'll say one thing about us Brits: we're a generous nation. We give more to charity per head than any other nation on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we do some things right.
Yes.
Yes. Now, my idol is Winston Churchill.
Let us go forward together.
Yeah, we must go forward together. Yes. Yes. Yes, you see, he, one could say he was no oil painting, but my goodness, how will we have got through the war without him?
Would have been very difficult. I think he was a man at the time who was ideal to be in that place to help.
Yes, he certainly was. Yes. All these, I don't know, all these, muscle-bound men that you see in magazines and so on don't really impress me. Even though there's a certain degree of envy involved, I suppose.
Well, yeah, my wife says that the six-pack is, you say there, but I haven't seen it for quite some time because of the flab. So, but I know it's there, sir.
Anyway, my goodness, I've seen a few prime ministers come and go. Good ones, bad ones. No, Churchill and Macmillan. I was an admirer of Macmillan. Harold Macmillan. I had no admiration whatsoever for the Labour prime ministers, Harold Wilson or what was the other guy's name, who didn't step up to the plate and go out and face the enemy in battle.
Now this gentleman, I believe you served in the war, is that correct? But not necessarily the Cold War, is that right?
The Cold War, yes. But my dear old dad, now he's such an admirable man. He was in the Met Police, and he served in Docklands in the worst time of the Blitz. Then he joined the Royal Navy and got a commission. He was an officer, and he was a wonderful man.
Very interesting. Because
all my uncles, no qualms, off they went and joined the armed forces.
Brilliant.
So physical prowess on its own, to me, is meaningless. After all, one could say that Churchill was no oil painter, and he certainly didn't have a six-pack, but he didn't need one.
No, he didn't. He had strength of character.
Yeah, strength of character.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yes. Something that was very interesting that you mentioned. I'm just going to put my foot on this tripod here, because yesterday, in the middle of an interview, it went flying. But yes, something that was very interesting you touched upon is having a good role model growing up, so a father. What we've noticed a lot with these influencers that unfortunately, in my opinion, having bad influential control over young men and boys.
Yes, yes.
One thing, common trend is that a lot of the time they're lacking a father figure growing up,
yes,
and a
yes.
loving father who can help with strength of character. In today's society, how important do you feel that having a good role model to help
yes.
is?
Absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. Now, I know that, we have so many one-parent families, meaning that usually that the father isn't there as a role model.
And may I ask, please, sir, what do you feel is bad masculinity in today's world?
Bad masculinity. Well, talking down to women and thinking of them as sex objects and so on. Right, just to put you in the picture, having been born during the German air raid, I ended up marrying a German.
Right.
It was our wedding anniversary yesterday.
Congratulations.
57 years.
Wow.
And she is a good German. Now, goodness, I know terrible things were done in the war, but my goodness, watching them rise from the ashes of the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle, unbelievable. And willingness to work. It's very worrying. We've got so many people not working.
And having a good work ethic, in my opinion, is absolutely key.
Absolutely.
It certainly is.
Absolutely.
That's a very interesting point. And I think that we could do more as a nation to have people working and contributing, and it gives you a sense of well-being.
Yes.
Knowing you're doing something.
Oh, absolutely. I remember back in the 70s, everyone was going on strike. Every evening there was a different trade union leader giving a justification for taking his men out not working. And I was a great admirer of Margaret Thatcher. Why not? Now, that steadfastness of purpose, my goodness, she certainly
had conviction.
Yeah. Not everyone will agree, especially many people from up north, but never mind.
Well, you can't please everybody, I suppose. And another question, moving on from that, thank you. What would you say, sir, is the 5 key traits that you think a man should possess in today's practice, in today's society?
Oh dear, 5 key traits. Right. Generosity of spirit, self-belief, but awareness that other people are entitled to their beliefs, and so on. In today's society. Today's society worries me because when I was growing up, we still had great nation status. The big 3, Churchill, Roosevelt and Stalin.
Yeah.
We were somebody.
We were at the table.
We were at the
Certainly.
table. Yeah, great nation. But it's gone. And people not doing things to excess, like certainly not drug taking. I've never done that in my life. And being careful with alcohol.
Those very good ones. Generosity of spirit, having sort of control over what can be very bad things, say mind-altering substances, alcohol ruin many a good man and woman. So partaking that in a reasonable way, or not drinking at all, or whatever works best for you.
Yes.
My
wife doesn't drink at all, but I drink a little, not much.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Anyway, I hope that's given you some...
It certainly has given some really good insight that I believe the viewers, our audience here will enjoy. And last question, if you will, sir. What do you feel is the antidote in the present with respect to the rise of extreme views from these influencers that have led to, unfortunately, young men and boys becoming more, when they weren't even at all, misogynistic, homophobic, and even xenophobic, so anti-Semitic sentiment growing.
Very hard.
Very sad. What would you say is the response to this, an appropriate response?
Well, it's very difficult indeed. I think there's too much reliance on the schools teaching people not to be misogynistic. You see, these things, when I was young, these things were always left to the family, you know, and well, that's how it should be. I feel that if the nuclear family is, you know, no longer practiced or respected, I don't know, but these things used to come from family, so that the teachers at school didn't have to spend a long time worrying about, you know, these things had to be included in the school curriculum. Yeah.
I suppose at a different era, going back a few years, so generations, the teacher could actually just get on with doing what they're there to do and teach, you know, because they had a family, as you mentioned, that were more prominent in their lives with respect to installing good values, having a male role models, a loving father, and of course a mother there. Very interesting. So I think that, unless of course you have any other things to say, we're here to listen. But I think that kind of rounds up this gentleman's insight. I think it's given some very intriguing points that we can learn from.
I was very lucky. I went to one of the old local grammar schools, which, well, always feel did a great deal for me.
Good grammar schools.
It's now, unfortunately, because of socialist dogma more than anything else, it's become a fee-paying school, whereas we didn't have to pay fees. But it had, you know, we had things like combined cadet force. You know, it was a very strong work ethic, you know.
Brilliant to install at a young age a strong work ethic, and to help you know the kids growing up to enjoy their work, you know, find their passion. Marvellous. And I believe back in your days, sir, and of course you're still in very much today's day as well, university was free.
Yes, it was not only free. I got a grant for going there.
And now it's just putting these kids, young adults, into debt and more debt.
I know.
40,000.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, just to do that.
That's one of the things I blame Tony Blair for. Now, if we had any gumption, we would get far more young people into apprenticeships. They do it in Germany and it works.
Yes.
They're not afraid of getting their hands dirty if they go in for engineering.
Mucking in, cracking on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm all for, and I'm certainly favour of apprenticeships. We need more of those. They're a good way to learn a skill early on. And very much for that.
Anyway, there are my thoughts for what they're worth.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I just want to say, really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day. The final interview was with a young man who gave us his insight into a myriad of key points with respect to masculinity and beyond. Joseph, thanks so much for coming over today.
Much having me.
Pleasure. So this gentleman is a young man who's here today to give us his insight into masculinity, good and bad, and the key traits of what he believes a man should possess in today's world, and also sort of having a look at these influencers recently that have appeared on the documentary The Manosphere with Theroux. His thoughts on the matter. So without further ado, we'll crack on. Brilliant. So what I'd love to know, Joseph, is what do you think good masculinity means to you?
Good masculinity? It's a good question, I'd say it was. I wouldn't say I'm the ideal candidate to ask this question because coming from a single parent household where my father wasn't so present, I'd have to learn the values from someone that wasn't my father, so say like my brother. Or an example I'd say is someone that I wouldn't want to be. Someone that violently crashes out or lashes out, which it crashes out. Someone that's not doing the best, someone that's not respectable. I'd say it's not a good example of good masculinity. But a good example would be being respectful, being tolerable to being around, being able to vent your emotions and being conversational, not being cold.
Good stuff. What to you is bad masculinity?
Bad masculinity? Thinking bottling up all your emotions is a good way to deal with problems when it's just not. It's just not. I think that's a good example.
Bottling it all up, and I think, as has been shown throughout history, it can go to that violence that you were talking about earlier because they're not processing those emotions in a healthy way. Brilliant. When I say brilliant, I mean that we were shining a light on that. I suppose I'd love to know, in this ever-changing world, what do you think are the 5 key traits that a man should possess in today's society?
Perseverance, instilling hope within others, being respectable, being kind, and being trustworthy.
I like that. Yeah, it's respectable, kind, instilling hope. I think hope is a key ingredient for me, and helping that, because it's contagious. You help other people have it, it goes. Exactly, yeah, it's sort of like paying it forward, right? Brilliant. What do you think is like the antidote, i.e. the solution, if you think an antidote is required, to the rise of extreme views on social media that are influencing primarily boys and young men into extreme views? So, for example, seeing women as second-class citizens, and that being gay is worthy of being disowned, or and unfortunately as well, xenophobic, anti-Semitic, views, hatred of the Jewish community. What do you think is the appropriate response to this?
I feel as if the best way to respond is to have different social views, different aspects of what it could be. Don't just take information from one source that can be toxic. Like, for example, there's multiple masculine creators, but there's also other creators that wouldn't say like superbly masculine, that have different views from them. And you can also like amalgamate them all into each other, as in you can take a negative view from one. You kind of try to understand what they're saying and also take someone else's view. You get the mix between that, and I think that's the best way you can take it.
It's interesting because I believe in the same way as you are. I think that having as many different viewpoints, having friends with different opinions, it's a key ingredient. It's the spice of life. It helps us broaden our own horizons of our own opinions. Good. And now looking into father figures, so a common theme that I've viewed, Joseph, with these influences is almost the vast majority, if not very close to all of them, is they are lacking a father figure growing up. What do you think is the importance of having a father figure that is loving and there to guide you growing up in today's world?
To be honest, I think it's everything. Honestly, I think it's everything. Obviously, I can't say the same thing because my father wasn't always present. But for everybody else, right, I feel as if you don't have a father figure. You don't have someone to regulate your emotions. You don't have someone to show you what's right and what's not right. You don't have someone to say, this is the border, don't cross it. or someone to say you should not talk to someone this way, as in, I feel as if a lot of males, or a lot of toxic males, right, they'll have their mother, but they won't be able to regulate their emotions that they feel, because more in nature they're more angry, right? And the mother is more soft, more understanding. And if you don't have that father figure to let you know, look, stop, you just go beyond control. And I feel like that's where most of these male masculine creators are. Their emotions are not kept in check.
That is really intriguing, and having someone there that's for you as a role model as a father is, I think, key in today's world. Good stuff. One of the influence now I want to get into that is shown in the documentary The Manosphere is HS Tiki Toki. It's Harrison Sullivan, a young guy, and he's interviewed in the documentary stating brazenly that he says, if I had a daughter that was doing OnlyFans, I'd find that disgusting. But at the same time, Joseph, he's happy to profit off the backs of this content, right? Of OnlyFans girls that are doing this. So I put it to you, what do you think about that?
As in, what do I think of HS Tiki Toki?
Profiting off the back of OnlyFans content, whilst at the same time says, I find it disgusting. My daughter, if she did that, I'd find that deplorable, that kind of thing.
I find it disgusting. Because obviously he doesn't value human emotions. He doesn't value the human side of females. He just sees it as transaction, as just money, just as profit. That's just not the way to look at it. You can say that in his household when he was younger, he was definitely neglected, just to have that type of emotionally neglected, to think that no more just tools, or just, as he would say, profit. It's disgusting.
It kind of brings me to, from your answer, the viewpoint of whether they know it consciously or not, of seeing these girls as just transactional, not human, when they clearly are, and indecent behaviour. Moving on to another influencer that's seen in this documentary, a guy called Justin Walsh. So he has recently had a clip come out since the Manosphere of the guy with Andrew Tate, where they discuss what are the practices to isolate women from their friends. So Justin in this is quoted as saying, and I quote, "One way I isolate my girl to be only my friend and not have her friends have an influence is I attack her friend's friend. So I attack every one of her friends," unquote. I mean, does this seem insecure to you to be attacking her friends to isolate her?
The fact that someone can say that is disgusting. If that doesn't just breed insecure, I have no idea. As in, you want to make sure she has no one to fall upon. Her social group, her social boundary where she can rely on is just not there. It is insecure because you don't want someone else to instill thoughts within her, like saying, look, this relationship is not healthy. I just think it's disgusting, honestly.
I hear you. Justin's interview with his partner, and this is basically the mother of his children, right? And he says that he practices one-sided monogamy. In short, he can sleep with whoever he wants, but not for her. And he also says that not only does she need to be faithful to him whilst he's sleeping around, they're not married. So my question is, even though I'm all for couples doing what they want to do, I'm concerned that this setup leaves her exposed to financial manipulation as a form of isolation. So what do you think?
Oh, there's 2 points we have to get into it. One is obvious, he's trying to control her. Trying to control all aspects of her life. She has no say as in what he does, because one, she can't leave because she's financially responsible on him, and two, as from early, she's completely isolated. She can't fall upon her friends to, is this okay, is this right? It just doesn't work. What I think of it is vile. He's obviously just wants someone to manipulate, someone to control and exploit that he can do what he wants because he's a man. And she'll say nothing because who can she fall upon? Who can she ask for help? Nobody.
because by this point she'd already left her nursing job within the healthcare sector, and literally, as you were referring to there, is completely financially dependent on him. And he's not even going down the marrying route. So just interested in hearing your thoughts on that. Good stuff. So lastly, Myron. He's another influencer that's interviewed in the Manosphere, and he has unedited footage that he put out there of the whole time that he filmed the documentary with Louis, and he's on film there stating that he thinks that women shouldn't vote. Why is he saying that? I mean, it seems that he's openly saying that because that's his core belief, because he's quoted on his podcast, quote, "Women don't have critical thinking skills, and that the majority of women are stupid, and that women are overgrown children," end quote. These are mothers, they're daughters, our daughters, sisters, aunties, nieces, grandmas, the list goes on, and they're some of the best contributors to society that we have. So what do you think on this as a view?
Can you go deeper on what he said?
Yeah, so he was saying that in his podcast he sees women as second-class citizens, that they are emotional, sort of too much, and as a consequence hysterical, and he thinks that women have already had enough given to them, so we don't need to give them more. I think that's the crux of his viewpoint as to why he thinks that they don't deserve the vote. To me, it just seems to be going backwards in time. Women went through a lot, the suffragettes and what have you, to get to the point where they've got the vote, practically like 100 years ago. So I just wanted to see your insight into that as a young man.
Well, I think his viewpoint is very brute, as in it's too rude. I'd like to believe that he doesn't say this, and I like to believe that he doesn't mean it, but obviously he does. So we have to really dive deep into what he's saying. He's saying that all women are stupid, right? All women are too emotionally.
The majority of women are stupid.
Majority of women are stupid. No, that's not right. Because statistically, if we were to really go there, women do better than men in education. That's another
growing up, school, college, they do. And it's interesting you say that, because there's been quite a few studies that show that the median average IQ of both men and women is almost literally identical, so it's not backed up. That's a good point. Looking at Myron's girlfriend, so at the time of the documentary, he manages to get interaction with her, and Louis asks her what I think is a pivotal question, that being, does she feel comfortable with Myron having multiple wives? So the question to you is, would you like multiple wives or husband, whatever your bag is?
I like the thought of it. I like the thought of it, you know what I mean? You can dip your hand into every pocket, you know what I'm trying to say. But no. I can't imagine, I have a connection with somebody and breaking that bond to go do something with somebody else. I can't imagine that. It's just not fair on either partner.
I hear you.
What about you then?
Yeah, it's a good one, because personally, I see two sides of it in me. The one being, on a practical sense, just don't have the time, for multiple wives. My wife said it takes up enough time, but I'm glad to spend time with her, and are happy to do that. But so the practical sense, no. As to the moral sense, I feel you can do within your own sort of remit, provided you're being loving, or whatever you wish to do. There are, I think, a faith that is okay with having multiple wives, but yeah, not for me.
He says no, guys.
I can see why people are tempted. Well, there you have it. So, Joseph, this has been insightful. Thank you so much for coming down today, and I'm sure he's going to have a great career ahead of him, and wish him all the best.
Thank you, Ed.